as we continue to feature and highlight various different indie comics that are crowdfunding on various different platforms, don't get a whole lot of opportunity to talk about truckers in space, but we do get to do that this week. And Andy Belanger joins us from Montreal to talk about Mother Truckers. It is the new campaign, the Double Whammy, which is currently funding on Indiegogo. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Okay, so I ran across this week. I reached out and said, let's talk about this. So let's bring people up to speed here on Mother Trucker, the Double Whammy. Where did this idea come from? That's a heck of a title.
Well, I've been in the comic business for about 20 years. I've worked for almost every major publisher: DC, Image, Boom, Dynamite, Heavy Metal Magazine, TKO, IDW. I did a huge series at. So I've worked for almost every major publisher in comic books. And I've done a lot of stuff for video games, Ubisoft, Behavior, as an animator. So, but when I moved to Montreal in 2012 from downtown Toronto, all the guys I worked with at Ubisoft were all huge wrestling fanatics. So in Montreal, wrestling is as big as, say, hockey or baseball or any of the other sports. In Montreal, it's just a crazy wrestling town.
Yeah.
So I was going to live events with my friends, and we were yelling at wrestlers, and I met a few of them. I started doing T-shirts, posters, all kinds of stuff for those guys on the side. During the day, I draw comic books all day for the publishers, and then at night, I was doing stuff for the wrestlers. And one of the guys, Crazy Manny and Shane Hawk. Shane Hawk actually works for Lethal Comics now. He's like one of our head editors and production guys. They were starting a school, like a wrestling school, the first one in Montreal. So I joined that school 7 years ago and became a professional wrestler. And I became a professional wrestler to write Mother Trucker. Wrestling comes from a very strange place of sort of like carnies, and it has its own language.
Right.
And very quickly, as soon as I started having my first few matches, I became completely hooked on it, on performing and becoming a professional wrestler on the side of me being a comic book creator. And Mother Trucker on Indiegogo right now, the Double Whammy, is sort of like a side campaign for the people that missed the first two Kickstarters. So we had a Kickstarter for each issue over the last year, and they did amazing. They exploded. And this is basically a chance for people to get both of the books, if they didn't buy it previously in a Kickstarter, to get it on Indiegogo before we launch this gigantic thing of Mother Trucker 3 that's happening in about a month and a half.
Now,
so we have the third installment. So the second books are coming from the printer this week, being shipped out to all the Kickstarter people. And we're offering everyone on Indiegogo the chance to jump in and pick up the books and go to it. But the idea for Mother Trucker was I wanted to make a wrestling comic. And the idea of just a plain wrestling comic about the day in and day out of a wrestler was sort of being done already with Headlock Comics. So I thought, I came from Image Comics doing a sci-fi series called Southern Cross. I figured if I take my sci-fi and I take my wrestling and put the whole thing in space, it would be really, really cool. So Mother Trucker is a space trucker. So the world of like that TV show Ice Truckers.
Right.
So if you took Ice Truckers and mixed it with WWE, that's the major entertainment in my world. So as you're on the space highways, and let's say you have the contracts for Walmart, you have the Walmart championship belt because you hold the contracts. If I'm another trucker and I want your contract, I'm going to roll up on side you, challenge you to a match, and the back of our trucks transform into rings like Transformers, and we go at it. And if I beat you, I get your contract, I get your truck, and then you go to the back of the line at the sort of like unemployment line to get a new truck and a chance at getting back on the highways, the space highways. So Mother Trucker is sort of this sort of crazy, genetically enhanced woman after a crazy accident at Truck Off 3, where an explosion blows up near Houston. And she kind of wakes up from the explosion and she's been rebuilt. And all she knows is that she wants to go and win her truck back. And eventually you find out that she had an estranged daughter. So then it's all about her finding out who her daughter was on the trail of becoming the truck off champion. So well, yeah, that's the world that I created.
I gotta say, Andy, this is certainly a unique combination of elements. I will say that. I mean, there is an episode there's an episode of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century with Gil Gerard from back in the late 70s, where there was a race in space. You know, they're trying to get through there. But I don't know that I've ever seen anyone put wrestlers and trucks in space. I mean, you had the race over in Buck Rogers. X-Men Animated did the physical competition. The winner takes all type of thing, like you see in these cage matches and that kind of thing. But to add the element of the trucks into the middle of it, I mean, how much did you do to modify the designs on the trucks to be space trucks? I mean, are we just looking at regular cab over Peterbilts and you just throw a bunch of rockets on them, or what?
Yeah, sort of. You've got the front basically of your North American truck normally, and then I mix it with sort of like a lot of the spaceship design stuff that I did on Southern Cross. So I was doing a lot of, when I was a kid, I was one of those kids in the early 80s whose bedroom had like the wallpaper with all the, shuttles and spaceships and everything. You used to get real cool wallpaper back then. But the trucks are basically, the front part will look like a truck and the back part will look like, your average sort of like shuttle, or, it'll have big turbines down the side and all the rest of it. So and the insides are all sort of like what you'd think they'd look like, fur carpets and
right.
and little tiki ladies and like all that stuff. But I was very influenced by something called Dectora out of Japan. Okay. And Dectora is they have this like group of people in Japan that basically take their transport trucks and just make them crazy with designs and lights and paintings. And if you look it up, it's the craziest thing you'll ever see. We don't have anything like it in North America. All our trucks kind of look the same. And in Europe, the trucks are kind of flattened off in the front. In Japan, the designs are wild. They look like Transformers. They look like crazy Transformers. They have thousands of lights on them.
No.
And they have these sort of like truck rallies where everyone shows up with their truck to show off their truck, like a car show, like a classic car show.
Now, were you aware of Dectora before you started designing, or was this something you came across in your research for world building?
I came across it in the research for world building, but I've been working on Mother Trucker almost the entire time I've been wrestling, so almost 6-7 years, and I never got around to it. Because I was always like working for publishers, making money, like, you got to pay the bills. So your baby project that you always want to do always goes onto the back burner. And then in 2019, when COVID hit, I did a giant piece of animation that basically in 3 months paid my whole year. And then I was burnt out and didn't know what to do. So my wife was like, hey, you've been working on this thing for like 6 years in the background. It's time to do it. So wow. We did it. We launched it on Kickstarter. It exploded. The second one exploded. We started a company from there. And now in Indiegogo, this is sort of like your last chance to get issues 1 and 2 before I launch like a gigantic part 3 episode. So it's going to be like really, really fun.
Now, are you also using the Indiegogo campaign as a way to compare how the two different platforms perform? Because there are people who swear by Kickstarter and people who say I'm only going to do Indiegogo, and you have the various different factions out there. I mean, Comicsgate is doing their thing, and you've got a bunch of people that are now over at Substack, and there's back and forth and neener. What was the determining factor for you in going to Kickstarter over Indiegogo for the first two campaigns?
Well, I went to Kickstarter for the first two campaigns because Kickstarter was technically a larger site, like it has more like users.
Right.
So it made sense to go there. It had nothing to do with politics. It just had to do with I'm really good buddies with Jimmy Palmiotti, and Jimmy Palmiotti was there, and he was kind of like showing me the ropes. He's a bit of a mentor character in my life. I was best friends with Darwin Cook. He was like my older brother before he passed, and Darwin was best friends with Jimmy. So when Darwin passed, I kind of like, when I'm, doing stuff in the industry that I don't know what I'm doing or I'm out of my depth, I kind of called Jimmy, and Jimmy suggested I try Kickstarter and kind of like walk me through it. And we did absolutely amazing. But the entire time I've been on Kickstarter, I've had people ask me, why isn't it on Indiegogo? Why don't you try Indiegogo? So I'm trying now. But I mean, in the first little bit, it's stuff that I've already launched. Right. So I think my fan base has already pretty much picked up these books. And this is basically just a chance that if people on Indiegogo want to get it, they can get it. It's just an opportunity for them. As far as the politics stuff go in comics, I'm Switzerland. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I don't want any part of it.
Smart.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. My own politics. I'm pretty like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Like and I think as far as politics go on our planet right now, we've gone so far in both directions. I think it's hurting our country, like Canada, in the United States. I think it's really hurting us because nothing's getting done.
Agreed.
Nothing's getting done because it's just like, oh, you want to do this? Like, forget it. Oh, you want to do this? Forget it. That's not a way to move forward with anything. So
it's funny.
For me, I kind of like sit in the middle.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Darwin Cook. I just finished rereading New Frontier night before last. I was like, I'm going to pick this up and read through it. That's such an excellent book. So
he's such a, like, for me with Darwin, what people don't know, like, besides him being a brilliant artist, he was just such a great writer.
Yeah.
His dialogue, like, he's got, I don't know if you noticed, he's got a real amazing sense of sort of like sentimentality. Like, the characters are really, really classic, very sentimental, very being friends with Darwin Cook was like being friends with Wild Bill Hickok.
I don't think I've ever heard that
I mean? It's like your buddy
before.
Wild Bill Hickok, so no matter where you go, you're getting in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you read his comics, and it's like you get to see who he really was.
Yeah.
Like, especially with New Frontier, you get to see who he really was, and who he was, he was a sweetheart,
Yep.
He was a real sweetheart.
Yep. All right, so Mother Trucker is currently funding. You are 26 days out, and
oh yeah,
is this going to go into the in-demand portion? Are you're doing 30 days? Are you going to do an extra 30 days? Or are we in the second 30 days now?
I selected the in-demand so people can keep getting it.
Okay.
We're in the 30 days, but if we're gonna run the third part, I might turn it off for to launch into the third part of Mother Trucker.
Okay.
Because then if people want to get all three, they can do it. But I did click the in demand, so I don't know. It's all kind of an experiment, right? We're just kind of checking stuff out. Like, I've been approached by Zoop. I've been approached by, I think BackerKit is coming out with their own version of a crowdfunding platform. Really? But I know the woman that runs the publishing side of Kickstarter, and she's a real sweetheart, and she really bends over backwards to like make sure that like everyone in my company gets what they need, and she's really good for us. I think she was a little worried that I did an Indiegogo. I got an email from her, and it's because like Kickstarter has gone on the blockchain, right? So people are very much like angry about the blockchain, and then people are very much angry that Indiegogo has Kickstarter. And if people had their way, me and my family would be homeless. Like so. I don't care. Like, I will go anywhere that puts food on the table for the family, and Kickstarter has been really good for us. But like, I'm not going to discount Indiegogo either.
Well, that brings to mind.
I think everyone deserves an opportunity, and I don't know that it's two separate markets. I thought maybe they're like they were like two different stores. Now you're putting your book in another store, but I don't think it really works like that. I think your fans find you where you are so far. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It's a big experiment when it comes to getting outside of the world of publishing. And I've wanted to get outside of the world of publishing for a long time because I've worked for everybody. And when it comes to publishing comics, you know, it's up to me to market my own books, but it's not, you know, it's like a company's name on the front and they don't market it. So it's up to me. So if I'm going to market my own books, I'd rather take 70 cents on the dollar and handle production than 10 cents on the dollar and spread it between all of my creators. It's why it's like most people working in comic books, I would say 95% of the people working in comic books are working for under minimum wage right now. That was fine when I was 20, but like when you're in your 40s and you have a family and kids and a business, you know, working for $150 or $200 a page, pencils and inks, when it takes 2-3 days to do a page, that's less than minimum wage. I can make more working at like a fast food restaurant flipping fries or burgers.
Yeah, and I've seen some discussion now. I know a few different people on YouTube have made videos talking about, you know, if you want the comics industry to improve, you got to put more money into it. And it is a sad state of affairs for the big two to be where they are, and the talent that they have not to be properly compensated at all. But
and in the last 2 years, their rates have all dropped.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity for everybody to go indie, and that's what everybody seems to be doing. And you're there right along with them. The website, lethalcomics.com, where they can find everything that you guys are doing. What besides Mother Trucker is in the pipeline for you?
Oh, we have so much. So we did a gigantic heavy metal magazine style project called for the movie Psycho Gorman. It's 30 plus creators, and we're on the last story now, so that's getting put together, and then that'll be shipped out. Well, Mother Trucker's getting shipped out next week, part 2, but Psycho Gorman will go in about a month and a half, and we might do another one. I have a project coming up called BMXV, which is there's the Psycho Gorman stuff. 30 plus creators. Let me tell you, for the first time editing and sort of like being the head guy on a heavy metal magazine anthology, it's not easy.
I bet. We actually had a chance to talk to the guys who made the movie, and reviewed it here, and it's a trip. It's a fun piece.
Big time. So I mean, I know the director of the film, and we're good buddies, and we're going to be making some comics together in the future. But I have one that I'm writing, and Aurelio, a friend of mine from Sicily, who worked on Psycho Gorman, is illustrating the series, and it's going to be BMXV is basically 1980s BMX kids in a beach town, and then there's vampires. So really, it's my chance to like make a Lost Boys comic. Okay.
I was just about to say,
we're all obsessed with Lost Boys in my studio.
Lost Boys with bikes, yeah.
Yeah, Lost Boys with BMX bikes, BMX racing.
There you go.
So it's going to be really, really cool. So that's coming very, very shortly. That's probably going to launch almost like a few weeks after Mother Trucker 3, I think. It's going to be really, really close. So those two projects are what I'm working on now. And then I have some covers, and, you know, I always have lots of other people asking me to draw comics. So
all right.
A few more things coming down the pipe, but
well, we will
Mother
definitely.
Trucker's my baby.
We'll definitely have you back to talk about those projects as they roll out. In the meantime, anybody who's interested can check out lethalcomics.com, and over on Indiegogo, Mother Trucker, the double whammy, currently funding for all of you who are into wrestling and truckers and all that stuff. So that's going to be that actually looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So. Andy Belanger, thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That's great. I'm going to go swimming.
Okay.
You're watching Sci-Fi4Me TV.